Hello and welcome to 6.2 Lab 1. Go ahead and open up this file, the HTML file and the accompanying JS file in your editor, and let's go ahead and dive in. First off, here's the steps we're going to go through. We're going to create a program that we're going to collect strings of information into an array. So we're dealing with more complex information here. So we're going to create a form with one text field and a submit button. Form's going to have an ID attribute. We're going to have an output div tag just like we've had in the past. And then we're going to have a unordered list. You can do an ordered list or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. We're going to have a list basically. And then our submit button is going to call the onSubmit attribute, which is going to call our lab62_1 function. Okay, so let's take a look at that first before we look at the JavaScript. So here is our output div, and inside there I have an array list. Okay, now I get in the habit of ID and or class just about everything, so that when I'm writing my JavaScript I can just grab the output div or array list or what have you, which is what we're going to do. And then I have this form. So let me just clean up the little things here. I like my things nice and neat, so my code looks good. So I have this form with an ID of 6.2 lab form. It's just what I called it. It's self-submitting, and I'm going to call this onSubmit lab62_1 function to return here, and it's just got an input. So if we look at our actual form, it just looks like that. Nothing fancy, just a simple form. So then in our JavaScript, we're going to have a global array variable. That way we can access it from anywhere. And the reason why we're making it global is, and I'll show you that in the code, is if it were within the function itself, it would reinitialize every time and get rid of everything. So we want it to hold our information in there. Then we're going to grab our information from our HTML, grab the value, and push it into our array. So let's take a look at that code here. So here is our global entered strings array. It's an array, it has brackets there, so we know it's an array. And again, that's global, and I'm just initializing it as an empty array here. If it were local, meaning if I had stuffed it inside my lab62_1 function, every time I would call it, it would clear it out because it would reinitialize it, and I would lose my previous information. And I don't want to do that. I want to keep information in there, because what we're going to allow our end user to do is type information in our text box, hit the button, it adds it to our list. Type information, hit the button, adds it to our list. Okay, so here's what we can do. We have our display list variable, form, and array value. So display list, I'm saying go into my document, get my element with the ID of array list. That is simply going in here and grabbing my unordered list. That's all it's doing. Then my form, go into my document, get my element with an ID of 6.2 lab form. Grab my form, stuff it in there. And then array value, I'm saying go into my form variable, grab my array input, that's the input text box, grab the value, whatever was typed in there, and stuff it into the array value variable. Then call my entered strings array and call the push method. What the push method does, just like if you read through the previous information for this lab, takes whatever I pass to it, that method, in this case array value, and sticks it on the end of my array. So I can push data to it and fill my array. So whatever I type in there, I'm pushing into my empty entered strings array, and I can keep adding to it. Now, what I'm doing here, there's a couple different ways you could go about refreshing the screen and all that. Some libraries have a refresh method built in. Here's how I'm doing it. I'm going to say go into my display.enterHTML and make it blank. Okay, and I'll explain why I'm doing that. I'll do a demo where I'll comment that out so you can see that. Then I'm just going to do a for loop where I'm just going to loop over my array, and I'm going to set and use a compound add of my display list using enterHTML of all my entered strings. So just create list items and then return false, like in the last lab I showed you about the forms. I just don't want my form to refresh, so then I'll lose everything. So let's see if this works. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this display.enterHTML equals blank here. Let me refresh my screen so I can type in some stuff, hit enter, type in some more stuff, hit enter, type in some other stuff, hit enter, and see it's adding it to the page. Now Again, what I'm doing is I'm actually clearing it out and then repopulating it with the information that's contained in this array. If I don't do that, watch what happens. Let me refresh my screen here. So I'll enter the number 1, then I'll enter the number 2, then I'll enter the number 3, then I'll enter the number 4. See what it's doing, since I'm not clearing out the previous information, it's just adding it to it. That's why we have duplicates in here. So I'm just clearing it out. That's one way to do it, and I find it's a pretty easy, slick way to do it. The other thing that I could have done in here, and this is, you know, just kind of out of user experience convenience here, is I put, you know, some info in here and hit enter. Notice that I then have to click in here and highlight and clear it out. There are some methods to use to actually help that do that for you. You can actually clear it out. You can say, you know, something like, you know, form dot array oops, I need to spell array correctly. Input dot focus. Let me refresh here. Some info. Boom. And see how my cursor stayed in there. And then if I actually do this dot select, refresh my page, some info, it'll actually highlight that, so I can just, you know, type over what's there. Okay, we can also clear it out. You know, you can set the value equal to blank and stuff, but I just wanted to show you there's a couple ways to do that to make things easy from a user experience standpoint. But I just wanted to the main point of this lab is to show you how you can take information in a form from an end user and use JavaScript programming functionality to update the DOM, is basically what we're doing, and adding information to our page to create content on the fly using end user input. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, let me know, and happy coding.